I'm Megan Tovar. I work on the Cardinal Quarter team at Haas. You might have seen Alondra who checked you in. She's also on the Cardinal Quarter team. And Valerie's the third member of our team. And you probably have seen emails from her. Maybe you met her at the fair last week. This is Emma and Audrey, and they will each talk about their Cardinal Quarter experiences in just a moment. But they're both Cardinal Quarter peer advisors. And throughout this presentation, we will tell you to go visit them and the other peer advisors. They are paid. Wow. Where did you come from? I've never even seen anyone open that. So the Cardinal Quarter peer advisors are paid staff at the Haas Center, student staff, and their whole role is to help you through the process of applying for Cardinal Quarter, including just learning about the fellowship itself. So please, I'll say it a few times, but make an appointment, go to their drop-in hours, which you can see the QR code over there, but we'll talk about that later. You can just sit to the side for a second until those slides if you want. I didn't want to make you stand the whole time. Great, so you've probably heard about Cardinal Service. It's a campus-wide initiative that has lots of different parts. Many of those parts are housed at the Haas Center, including Cardinal Quarter, which is why you're here. But you may have taken Cardinal courses. There's like 300 of them. Those courses are in all different departments on campus, and they're undergrad and graduate, and they're more kind of like using the curriculum to address real-world social issues. And so I encourage you, if you haven't taken one, to look those up as well. Also at the Haas Center, which is part of Cardinal Service, is Cardinal Career. So if you're a junior or a senior and you're like wondering what options are available to you in terms of fellowships or employment in public service, that's a great program to look into, and you can get some advising from them as well. And then Cardinal Commitment, some of you might be part of some of our programs that do more kind of like weekly or more regular service with specific organizations. That's also part of Cardinal Service. And then last but not least is the Cardinal Quarter program. So that is the stipended quarter-long public service fellowships, which hopefully you came to the fair and have seen some of them, but we'll talk about all those today. So just the nuts and the bolts of the fellowship program. So the fellowship program can be done any quarter. So if you were to do it during the academic quarter, you would stop out of Stanford and do a fellowship during the quarter. The vast majority of all of our fellowships, like 95% probably, of students do their Cardinal Quarter fellowships in the summer. And they work 9 consecutive weeks full-time, and we define full-time as like 35 to 40 hours. And it is stipended. So the idea behind Cardinal Quarter is that we want to make doing public service work accessible to everybody. It's very privileged to be able to take an unpaid summer experience. So Stanford, almost 10 years ago, kind of got behind and provided a lot of resources for students to be able to get a stipend while they are working for a nonprofit NGO doing something in public service. And I'll talk a little bit more about that stipend also. So it's $7,000 as a base stipend, and supplements are available for costs of living or international travel. So that'd be an additional $500 if you lived in like a major city like New York or the Bay Area, someplace that's kind of a high cost of living, or if you're traveling internationally to do your fellowship. And also, if you're a student on financial aid, you could get, the financial aid just tells us like if you're full waiver or half waiver, depending on your level of financial aid. So if you qualify for all those 3 things, it would be a $9,000 total stipend. And that money we just give to you if you're awarded the fellowship. It doesn't go to your organization or anything. It just would go into the bank account that you tell us to. That is important for a lot of students, especially international students that have to worry about like work visas and that sort of thing. So this, you're not technically an employee of an organization. It would just go into your bank account. So we have kind of 3 major buckets, or really 2 major buckets of placements. The first ones are pre-arranged placements. Those are ones that are more like typical internships in a nonprofit, NGO, government, agency. Those pre-arranged placements Stanford or the Haas Center sets up for you, and then you apply to them. And those are like a lot of the Stanford and government fellowships, the SIG fellowships, if you've heard about those, a lot of the energy ones, we have some education ones, some CS for social good. So you might know some of these fellowships by name from that paper that you have. The majority of our fellowships are actually self-designed placements. So that is when a student would reach out to an organization, they would find an organization, we'll talk about how to do that in just a second, but they would talk to that organization in the fall and early winter and say, I'm a Stanford student, I'm applying for this funding, could I work for you for 9 weeks? And like, I come fully funded, what could we put together in terms of an internship? And if that organization were to agree to that, then you would apply, and we'll talk about the application process in a minute. And you can apply for project funding for those self-designed placements. And a project funding is up to $1,000 extra to buy things that you would need for a project. And the idea is to take the burden off the organization. So a really popular thing to do at an organization for interns seems to be developing curriculum of a wide variety, or a public education campaign. So to do curriculum, you might need to buy some software, you might like need printing to be done, maybe you hire a consultant to come in for a couple hours, all that could be put into a project budget for an extra $1,000. Again, because we want you to like work with the organization for this project, but we don't want to burden the organization with like coming out of pocket to pay for some initiative. Another one that was like, I think helps give you a good visual is like someone made a community garden in an organization because food scarcity was an issue in that community. We have, so like over 500 students did Cardinal Quarter fellowships last year, which is like a lot of students, a lot of fellowships. So you can imagine they're like all over the place. They're domestic, like some students live on campus and work in the community here, like PCJ in the Bay, the Climate Justice Fellowship. A lot of people lived on campus and they worked in organizations around the Bay Area. It can be domestic. There's a lot of students, especially after their first year. This is very frosh friendly. A lot of people after their first year like to go home to their hometowns and work in an organization that they're like familiar with. Some people are even part of the organization in high school and they come back as an intern. And then internationally, we have lots of people as well. Unless you're going to a home country, Stanford has a list of kind of like places you're prohibited to go because of like risk. There on our website, you can see which, like a link to those places. It doesn't apply, obviously, like if you're going like some places in Bangladesh. I'm just pulling out a location that would be sort of off limits to Stanford students unless you're going home to Bangladesh. So that would be a different risk profile. If you ever have any questions, you can email us and we can help you through that. On-site work is preferred. Over the time of the pandemic, we had to shift a lot of things remotely. And while I think there's some value in that, organizations and students strongly prefer, even if they think they want remote work, they strongly prefer both of them in person. Work, at least hybrid, like lots of workplaces are hybrid. My job is hybrid, for example. So that would be fine as well. The application deadline is February 4th for most Haas opportunities. But as you look through this paper, you should just double check because some have earlier and later deadlines, like specific fellowships, but the vast majority are February 4th. And on our website or here, you can see all the fellowships that we have on our website. They go into more detail. And we work with lots of campus partners. So if you are part of a community center or have some connections to different parts of campus, you might check to see if they also have a fellowship, which you can look on here. We have, again, lots of campus partners that are all under this like Cardinal Quarter umbrella. And there's not one pathway to public service. Like in the history of Cardinal Quarter, we've had students from every year, every major, every sort of school or discipline has been represented in Cardinal Quarter. So if you're like, oh, I do this, I'm not sure, you know, it's not education or healthcare, is that still public service? The answer is probably yes. Again, most of our partners are nonprofits. We do actually sponsor some for-profits if they're like social entrepreneurship minded, and we can talk with you about those. Those are sometimes a little bit trickier, but we do that. And then I will let these two take over the slide.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Audrey. I'm a junior. I'm studying Earth Systems and Econ, and I'm one of the Cardinal Quarter peer advisors alongside Emma.
I'm Emma. I'm a co-term in sustainability, and my undergrad was in international relations, and this is my 4th year peer advising.
And just briefly, we're going to touch a little bit on our own Cardinal Quarter experiences. So I did a Cardinal Quarter after my freshman year through a program called the SIG Stipend Program. As Megan said, I was able to go back home and work for an organization that I'd worked with in high school. I did energy policy research and was able to do a lot of really cool work assisting a community organization that did a lot of work for me and helped me out in high school, connected back with mentors, and then also got the ability to, I think, do some really cool and really awesome policy and government work while also like being home and having kind of a normal and fun post-freshman year summer. I think that sort of flexibility and ability to help organizations is really what makes Cardinal Quarter so awesome.
So I've done 2 Cardinal Quarters. My first one was with Climate Cabinet, and a lot of Stanford students work with them. It was a very structured internship with state climate policy research. It was really cool, and I loved that whole team. And it was during the pandemic, so I was able to be home after my freshman year, Audrey, and had a fun summer. But yeah, so I think there is, I would have to say, for working with local communities or a hybrid in person at your home now, like freshman year. And then my second opportunity was also remote, still kind of pandemic time, but it was a bit less structured, and it was kind of me defining my own research within international climate policy development type work. So it was 2 similar but kind of different opportunities.
Yeah. And there are a lot of different sort of pathways and opportunities within public service. And I think it's really awesome because Cardinal Quarter allows you to explore sort of all the different kinds of variety, whether it's working with a community-based organization or a nonprofit or a government organization. This is just like a whole swath of different opportunities. Some of them are like international nonprofits. You can work like in a more like specific government role and position. So basically there's like all these different kinds of pathways and opportunities. Whatever you sort of can think about as public service or social impact or government or policy work, there's a Cardinal Quarter opportunity that fits that billing. If you take like time to leaf through the packet, you can see there's just so many different opportunities, such a diversity array of opportunities and possibilities. So if you have anything on your brain that is thinking about public service or thinking about social impact or thinking about policy, come talk to us. We'll help you find the opportunities that work best for you within those areas. Also, if you're looking for inspiration for what organizations you might be interested in working with, what organizations are doing work in specific sectors, there are a lot of resources on our website that can be super helpful. The website's kind of a behemoth on its own, but if you go on just like look up Cardinal Quarter and you go to a link that's called Resources for Fellowship Applicants, there'll be 2 documents that I think are really helpful. Number one is like a Meet the Fellows guide. That lists where a lot of fellows have worked in the past. We have guides, I think, for the past 5 or 6 years on every organization that someone that has done a Cardinal Quarter has done. So as Megan said, 500 people did Cardinal Quarter. So thinking about that over 7 years, that is an absurd amount of organizations that have hosted Cardinal Quarter fellows, and you're able to reach out to those specific individuals or those fellows or those organizations. That can give you like a good guide on like, what are people doing? How are they doing it? Another really cool resource that we put together is the Cardinal Quarter Fellows map. So if you're like, okay, I'm from Minnesota. So say I'm like, okay, I want to go back home to Minnesota. What are organizations that know what a Cardinal Quarter is? I can go use the map and be like, okay, here are all the organizations in my hometown that have hosted a Cardinal Quarter before. And I really think that those are both helpful resources because I think it's kind of a difficult program to explain if you're trying to communicate that to an organization. And they're like, what is Cardinal Quarter? What is this weird Stanford thing? They have lots of questions. If you're able to find people and organizations and places that really understand what it is, that takes a lot of the burden off you in reaching out. And you can be very like open and just say, hey, I'm interested in doing a Cardinal Quarter. How would it work? How would it function? And I think that smooths things over overall. So lots of resources, lots of different opportunities. We'll plug this so many times. Come to our office hours. We will provide a lot of really good support and feedback on how to navigate this process.
Yeah, so Audrey kind of touched on this a little bit. In these resources, we really want to help you find a community partner, because that can be probably the most daunting aspect of this process of the self-design fellowships that Megan was explaining. So the first resource that would be super helpful is the Cardinal Quarter connection sheet. So this is a list of organizations that reach out to us, like wanting a Stanford student for Cardinal Quarter. And this is we're going to be adding orgs to this sheet like throughout the quarter, so keep checking back. I think this is also a really good jumping point for seeing what kind of organization students have worked with before. Even if you don't find like the perfect nonprofit for you or perfect org, you can see like what kind of level students have worked at, and looking for similar organizations to those, or reaching out to those orgs. And then, yeah, the former fellows sheet, like Audrey explained, just to reach out to former fellows, see where they've worked before. It's like a huge document, like I think it's a PDF or Google Doc on the website. So I would recommend like Command Fing, like target words like energy or sustainability, just to like narrow down, like, or location too, because we put where the fellowship is based. So that's just a helpful way to sort of sort through that pretty daunting document. And yeah, reach out to us. We're happy to like guide you to these links, because the website is a little bit confusing. And then beyond that, reaching out to professors who might have professors that are doing work that you're interested in. They might have ideas for orgs. Also the Stanford Alumni Network. People will be like super excited to like work with a Stanford student. So if you're looking for jobs with LinkedIn, if there's already a Stanford connection there, that's a good place to start. And then after that, general just Google searching is actually how I like found my organization for one of my Cardinal Quarters. I knew where I wanted to be, and well, actually I ended up at home, but I was looking in the Bay Area. So I did like international climate policy, San Francisco, and then just cold emailed a bunch of orgs. That sounds terrifying. I was terrified to do it. But if you come to our office hours, we will like help you. We have like templates, thank you, for cold emailing orgs, like, because as a freshman, like that is terrifying. I totally get it. And Handshake, if you guys haven't been on there, also a great resource through your Stanford account. And yeah, just a couple other ideas for online, just general resources. But if you're in our office hours, we're like more than happy to help you walk through and find like specific works for you guys.
I actually was a Stanford undergrad like a long time ago, and I actually did a Cardinal Quarter equivalent, had a different name then, but it was like before all those resources existed, and I took a class that really inspired me. And I talked to the professor at the end of the quarter, and I said, like, how can I like keep learning? And she said, why don't you spend the summer in Southern Mexico at this organization? Which I emailed, and I did. And I left the Haas Center in Stanford for many years, but have come full circle. So there's lots of different ways to find interested organizations. Most of them are very happy to have already paid interns coming to them. So it's just a matter of sort of finding a good match. So the program components, if you were to be selected as a fellow, we'll talk about the application process in a second, but if you were to be accepted as a fellow, you would know by spring break. And then during the spring quarter, you would have some pre-experience things that you were doing, with the whole idea being that we want to send you into your fellowship feeling really prepared to get the most out of it, to learn the most, and then to contribute both to the organization and the community. So this kind of cornerstone is a workshop. It's an in-person hour-and-a-half workshop in this very same room, where we kind of work through the principles of ethical and effective service. Those are sort of the cornerstones of how we interact with any communities, so that we are not doing harm as we do our work. And there's an online course that's like a lot of logistics. If you're going internationally, there's like a separate online course. And again, they're like workshopping courses. They're not like 10-week courses. So maybe a few hours worth of work here. And then a really important component is the designing of a learning plan. It's something you kind of work on it in collaboration with the organization. So you're like, what am I going to be doing these 9 weeks? What will I hope to get out of it? What will I hope to contribute? How will I hope to grow? That kind of stuff. So that's in the spring. And then in the summer, it's pretty quiet from the Haas Center because you're working full time. It is like an immersive experience. So we hope that you are enjoying your placement, enjoying the place that you're living and the community that you're working with. We ask that you begin by July 7th so you can fit those 9 weeks in comfortably. And we just kind of check in with you with a quick experience report and then more of a comprehensive final report. And donor stewardship means like writing a thank you note to the person that funded your fellowship. And sometimes they have lunches and that sort of thing, but it really varies. And then you come back to campus and we hope that you are able to sort of process and close that learning arc by coming to the Haas to reflect, rejoining kind of cohorts, anyone that does a project and then anyone who wants to presents what they did at SERPS, which is over the alumni weekend. And then if you came to the Cardinal Quarter Fair last Friday, you may have talked to someone that did a fellow. So lots of fellows come and sort of serve as ambassadors. Sometimes they're peer advisors. But we hope this is the start of your kind of connection with the Haas Center because it is here for you. You get to meet a lot of people that are also interested in your issue areas and service in general. So eligibility. If you're an undergrad, you're eligible. We fund as many first years as third years. If you're a graduating senior, you are not eligible. If we happen to have a second round, which we don't know if we will, you would be eligible for that, but I wouldn't plan on it. If you are graduating in co-terming, that you'd still be eligible because you're coming back to Stanford in the fall. Any academic discipline is welcome. It doesn't matter if you're an international student. I explained a little bit like the money goes into your bank account, so you would have to kind of figure out your visa situation, but that on our end is no problem. You do have to be enrolled in both winter and spring as a Stanford student and be in good academic standings. That has to do with your GPA and the number of units that you're taking. You would know, your advisor would let you know if you weren't in good academic standing. And we ask that you have health insurance for the duration of your service, which there are options if you have the Cardinal Healthcare program. Emma.
Yes. So for our application process, it's pretty simple, not too stressful. I would say the hardest part of the application is finding a community partner like we talked about earlier. But once you have your organization, you will apply through Solo to the fellowships that match your org. So you can only apply with one organization, and but you can apply to multiple of our fellowships. So if you're working with a youth education group, nonprofit, you can apply to like the education and youth fellowship and the general Haas fellowship, and that's just a funding mechanism basically. But the application itself, just a couple short answers, just gauging your interest in public service and like your like how you feel about working at this org. Pretty simple. And then we have a partner questionnaire, community partner questionnaire. So the org that you're with will also fill out a thing just to say what you're doing over the summer, make sure you're actually going to have enough work that will fill full-time work for 9 weeks. Then we'll ask your resume and no letter of rec, but just a name of a reference that we could contact. This is good practice just to reach out to like professors or someone you've worked with in the past just to have a rec. And that as a freshman to me was also a little bit stressful, but professors from the past, even this quarter, or faculty that you work with, all eligible and always like they're more than willing to just hop in office hours and just make a bit of a connection with them, and usually they're more than happy to put their name down.
And we rarely reach out to them.
And we rarely reach out to them. Yes, yeah.
So it's no work for them, really.
Yes. And if you are accepted, if your application is approved, you will get a quick interview. It'll just be a peer advisor and one of the staff at the Haas Center, just asking you about your interest in public service, similar to the application. And it's pretty low stress, but just making sure that you're excited and a good fit for the role that you'll be doing. And then after that, usually pretty quick turnaround time, probably like 2 weeks max, we'll have an offer for you. So the whole process itself, you'll apply in February, we'll get back to you in like early March, and then a week after that, you'll know, a week or two after that, you'll have a good idea. So before spring break, you'll know if you have it for the first round. So for our selection criteria, we just want to be sure that you are committed to public service. Even if you have like no experience, you can talk up like how you want to like use this to be a jumping point for your future. We want students to be like newly engaged, and also a level of preparation for the fellowship. We just want to make sure you have like some sort of background in what you're going to be doing over the summer, and this will be connected to either your coursework or your future goals. So making sure that this is kind of in line with what you want to keep doing. If you're trying to out, this is like something that you'll be interested in for the future. And then communication skills, this will come through, especially in the interview, making sure you're excited and like, can talk yourself up and your internship up, and also an authentic partnership with the community organization. We don't want to be like, you're totally disparate. And that's why we have the community questionnaire to make sure you guys are in alignment for what you'll be doing. So for project-based experiences, we'll be a little bit, we'll have a few more criteria. We'll need you to identify the community needs. This is just because of the extra funding. We'll make sure that your project is legit and very much grounded in community work, because it is you leading it. And then with that, having a really comprehensive design and implementation plan for the project, so you're not just like flying blind with your extra money. We want to make sure you have measurable outcomes with feasibility and innovation that is adding to the community, to the organization. And then for international experiences, we want to make sure you're able to speak the language that your community organization is speaking, and also with that, like knowledge and prior experiences within the country, within the host country. And as we touched on before, cannot travel to high risk locations, with the exception being if you're going home. So yeah, that's what we'll be looking for in the application and in the interview.
And I was just going to add a little bit more about the international experience. So we also want to support people that are new to traveling. Again, traveling also could be a privilege for a lot of people, and they might not have had that experience, but we do want to make it like friendly. So it'd be kind of finding the right match for you. So finding an organization like maybe where English is, if you only speak English, where English would be an accepted kind of language there for your internship, and finding a place where like it would be sort of a soft landing for you if you were traveling for the first time. And you can take my card, it's over on the counter if this kind of applies to you. We want to sort of walk you through whatever processes would be necessary for that international travel too. So again, really great if you can like get knowledge through coursework or through lived experience about a place that you'd be going. But if you don't have some of that, just talk to us and we can kind of find a good match internationally for you too. It shouldn't stop you from wanting to do international service.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about some application tips and resources as you guys are getting started. Number one, just one of the things we really want to emphasize is that when you're doing work that's in communities, we really want to make sure we're not causing any harm to those communities. As we said in the spring, one of the big pieces you'll do is a workshop on the principles of ethical and effective service. And we just want to highlight some of these principles right now when you're considering what kind of work you want to do, how you'll design the projects, what groups you might work for. Just understanding humility, respect, and inclusion. So what are the communities that you're working in? How do you connect with those communities? Reciprocity, preparation, safety and well-being, accountability, evaluation, learning, and reflection. We'll talk a lot more about these during the workshop on effective and ethical service, but basically want to make sure you're thinking about these things when you're choosing the organization and the work that you're going to do. We want to make sure that you're considering what are the lenses that you're looking through when you're walking into a community, what are the assumptions you're making? Are you prepared to do this work in a way that is non-harmful? These are all things we want you guys to think about before you're choosing where you want to work with. I know it can be very exciting and very interesting to do public service in a community that you are not that connected to, or in a new place, or in an area where you feel you really could have an impact. We also want to make sure that you're considering how you going into that community and doing that work impacts broader systems. Another thing is demonstrating passion and interest in the placement or project. I think the amazing thing about Cardinal Quarter is you have the ability to shape it in whatever way you want, whatever organization you want. So really let your passions and interests shine through. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I always got was what is the number one thing if you were designing your perfect summer that you want to spend time working on and focusing on, and use that to harness and narrow the different opportunities, because then you're really allowed to demonstrate passion and interest in your placements or projects. Another really big and good tip is speaking in depth with your community partner. The more fleshed out of a project or a role you can create means that you'll have a bigger impact over your 9 to 10 weeks, but it also means that it's a more rewarding and valuable experience for you. One of the big things that I really loved about doing Cardinal Quarter was having to put together the learning plan, which can seem a little mundane at first, be like, okay, why am I writing like 10 goals that I have? But I think it really helps set your expectations and sets your ideas about what you want to get out of this experience. I think one of the other really good ways to do that is to start working and talking with your community partners. We're going to make sure that within your community partner, you have a mentor that you're specifically working with, and having a good relationship with that person, even before you start applying for these and building that up as you go, is a great way to get the most out of your Cardinal Quarter. Asking someone you know to serve as a reference. Again, there's no letter of recommendation needed. And I think if you are a freshman, this can seem a little daunting. Like, I don't know professors very well. I don't know these people very well. How am I going to ask them for a reference? I've only known them for 10 weeks. Good uses of people, if you've taken college, if you've taken Power, those are teachers that tend to know you pretty well, are people that serve really well as good references. But also, I think this is just a really good thing to get into the practice of, is building relationships with new professors and people in your community, because moving forward, not just for this, but for kind of all other opportunities, having those relationships and having that network is incredibly important and beneficial. Another really good tip is having someone else read through your application. So whether it is one of the professors you're talking to, or a peer advisor, or if you go to the Hume Center, if you haven't been to the Hume Center, one of my favorite resources on campus to like get your writing skills improved and like take a specific look, but definitely have someone look through your application, make sure you're communicating effectively. Again, we're not looking for the most experienced. We don't have to have a wealth of super in-depth knowledge, but we really just want to see that you're being passionate and interested, and helping that passion show through your writing is sometimes difficult. And so having someone else look through that and giving feedback can be super helpful and important. We're here also to help think about how you can channel your passions and interests into writing. Another really good place, if you're starting with like specific things like your resume or you're doing interviews, is the Career Ed Center. They have really amazing resources and workshops and advisors that can help you do like the nitty gritty stuff of a job application. Is like, how do I make sure my resume is formatted correctly? How do I make sure I'm properly communicating this experience I had? How do I do an interview? Especially if you're someone that hasn't had to do that before, it can seem a little daunting. Again, we're also here to help with that, but Career Ed is specifically focused on that, and they'll have really great, awesome tools and resources to hone those skills. And then finally, I think this is probably the most important thing and probably the best thing, is attending events like this where you get to learn and hear directly from us, and also attending our office hours. So we have that little placard behind Emma currently that lists our hours. It's also on our website. If you look up Cardinal Quarter Peer Advisors, we're here in the Haas for like 2 hours twice a week, just to come in and help answer your guys' questions, guide you guys through this process. So take what you hear today, think about it, do some research. And if you have questions or ideas or thoughts and you want to come in and talk, we're so happy to do that. I'm here from 1 to 3 today. So if you have questions right after this, feel free to stop by. I'm happy to chat more about it. But peer advisors, we're here, we're great. We know a lot about Cardinal Quarter and can help walk you through the website, find opportunities. As Emma said, write cold emails. I just want to like sort of in conclusion and wrapping this up, there are so many different resources all around Stanford campus that can help you through this process. We want to make sure that Cardinal Quarter is not just the summer experience itself, but we set it up and scaffold it in a way that is the best for you, and also build skills and connections and communities moving forward throughout future careers in public service or in policy or government, or having like other kinds of social impact. So use this not just as an opportunity to be like, okay, how do I apply for Cardinal Quarter, but how do I build skills, and how do I get to know people, and how do I do things that'll set me up well for a future career in these different areas and interests. And again, come see us, come talk to us. We're happy to talk at any point.
We talked a bit about our website. You can find just a lot of information on the website. If you need help combing through that website, come see a peer advisor. It is robust, and because Cardinal Quarter is part of like a larger campus thing, we have like lots of different entities that interact with that website. So start there. The resources for the applicants that Audrey brought up before is a great start. But again, if you need any help going through it, come see a peer advisor. The applications are now open. They're on Solo. Remember the February 4th deadline. In the Cardinal Quarter map, Audrey also talked about is a way to like look at like the 500 places that people were last year, in addition to the Meet the Fellows document, which should give you a lot of ideas and starting points. I'm actually going to come back to that one. I'll leave that one at the end. So some upcoming events. We have another information session, which you don't need to come to because you just came to this one. But if you have friends, you're welcome to spread the word. We would enjoy that. You should be on our interest list, but if you're not getting emails from Cardinal Quarter Interest, please add yourself to the interest list. We don't send very many emails except around this time when we're like reminding you of some of our key events in the deadline. And of course, the application deadline is February 4th. So I'll take some questions now, but I will point you to the places where you can think about things and come back to get your questions answered. So peer advisor. We also have staff advising from 1 to 3 at the Haas Center, which is great, but like you have kind of all those options available for you too. The peer advisors can look through your applications from like start to finish as like we won't as Haas staff. So if you want to ask like really in-depth questions, get templates to email community partners, the peer advisors would be the place to go. A couple like kind of separate Haas fellowships that are also Cardinal Quarter. So if you're interested in CS for Social Good, but don't have their contact information, Sherry and Sally wanted to share that with them. And then SIG fellowships, the point person would be Tracy. Again, these are peers of yours that could help you along the way. So that is the conclusion of our PowerPoint, but I'm happy to answer any general questions that you have, and we can all stick around after and Audrey will be available even till 3 if you have any questions.